transportation, and then we're combining this week just because we're working on similar things, and I really wanted to bring both Joey and Alan on at the same time and just talk about some things that are going on. And we were just having a great discussion prior to this, and I'll just kind of continue into that because my goal with this whole process, and I was just sharing this with Joey and Alan, is I want this to be as real as possible. Because often, we see in this world of marketing and filters and all that stuff that everybody shows you what they want you to see, or they paint a picture that is not real. I'm the exact opposite. I want to share, like, this is hard. These guys are brand new to the industry. They don't have experience in it. Joey maybe has a little bit more just because he worked in a situation that was a mill and familiar with some of it. But as far as the transportation side, it's all new. So we're going to kind of get into that a little bit here today. But before we do that, just, guys, how are we doing today?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing well. So, Joey, yourself?
Doing well. How about yourself, Dale?
Good. So we'll just kind of jump into the conversation we were just having, because I think that's important for me on this process. Joey's like, what else can we do? Because I'll tell you, sometimes our greatest strengths are also our greatest weaknesses. My impatience, my willingness to want to go fast and people to learn is a strength, but it's also a weakness. And sometimes people don't know how to necessarily interpret that. And I think that's kind of not putting words in your mouth, Joey, but is that kind of what you're seeing and feeling?
Yeah, basically. I just want to make sure that we're good.
Yeah, you guys are great. This is going to be a process. What are we, 6-ish weeks in? You guys are doing everything we ask you. The things that are great is you guys are reliable. You're showing up. And if, Alan had a sickness, but he was very good at communicating. I actually said, no, just wait till you're well. Those are the things that a lot of times are a struggle with new jobs and new employees, is just that accountability and showing up on time. And you guys are knocking that out of the park. So, Alan, do you want to expand on Joey's feelings? Or are you kind of feeling the same way?
No, totally. I feel the same way. I'm starting to feel the pressure for sure.
Yeah. Well, and so let's back up a little bit. Joey, you mentioned in the first episode that you were used to being thrown in the deep end of the pool and just figuring out. Well, I've thrown you guys in the deep into the pool a little bit more and bringing that pressure to you. So it's like, so maybe kind of, elaborate on that a little bit of like, you wanted that, now we're here. Now what do we want?
Oh, well, I feel like you believe our trainings at one point, and I don't think we're at that point. I think we're still a little bit behind. Mm-hmm. So that's where I was trying to ask, like, where are we at in our training, where you think we should be? And then so we can gauge it, say if we are behind or if we're not behind. Yeah. But definitely throw us at the deep end. But at the same time, how deep are we going to go?
Yeah. Gotcha. Alan, what's your thoughts on that?
Same. It's just like, it's about us being on the same page with you, exactly, with our training and our progress. So,
yeah. Well, one of the things that we had a conversation about the other day was a sense of urgency. And I think in this business, anybody that is successful understands what that means. And the example I used with you guys was, if we get an email or a call from a customer, my expectation is we're circling back within 5 minutes. Especially if they're like asking for an update on a truck, or, hey, I got this load, can you cover it? Because if we're not doing that, it's going to be a challenge, and they're going to go to somebody else. So in fact, my point with that was, if we're not responsive, and not that you guys haven't been, I'm just trying to instill that urgency, both to customers, but internally as well. Because if we're not having that sense of urgency in this industry, they're going to go to the next provider. So in theory, we're training our customers to go somewhere else if we do that. And I'm not saying we're doing that, but I'm just using that as an example where I've seen people in this industry struggle because they don't have that responsiveness. They're more of task oriented and they're working on this task and they can't be paying attention to their emails or, their text messages or the phones. And there's a time and a place for that, but you got to have support that's going to help you still provide that customer service, because at the end of the day, that's the main thing we have, is the service to our customers. And to elaborate a little bit further on this, that kind of brought this up for our listeners, is I emailed these guys this morning and they were working on something. Obviously, I'm not in the office today, and they are, and Steve had them working on something. And an hour later, I said, "Hey guys, you going to respond to me?" And Steve was like, "Well, I have them working on this," which was more important, by the way. So I don't want you guys to think that wasn't more important. But my point was, with these guys, I'm a customer too. Mindset is like, you got to respond to me within that 5 or 10 minutes as well. Like, hey, Steve has us working on this. Do we need to shift gears? The answer would have been a simple no. Move forward. But just that response to let me know, or our customers know, that, hey, I heard you and I'm checking on it. So I'll kind of pause there because I'm talking fast and I need a drink of water. So, Alan, what are your thoughts on just today and where you are?
Today and where I'm at. Learning for sure a lot more now that I'm actually starting to build actual loads and calling for carriers to actually pick up this load.
Mm-hmm.
So learning and having to multitask from pages to page, or having to know what to press or what to say, even to carry on the conversation, or to kind of pause the conversation or slow it down just to get more details. But I think that's been really good. Still working on, conversating and knowing what to say and continuing to build that.
Are there some examples of areas that maybe you struggle when a carrier, like if you're calling out on a load or calling carriers, is there an area specifically that you really get tripped up on?
Calling carriers mostly, it's sometimes about the details about the load. Sometimes I'm not fluid with it. And it maybe pushes the carrier away, or I don't know, but I think that's my side of it, being more fluid and confident.
So how do we get you there?
Practice. Over the past 3 days, I've kind of tied down just to focus on how I deliver my stuff. So I've been writing some stuff down and really trying to practice it. So that's what I've been doing on my side.
Yeah. Is there any examples that you could share, like, when you're calling these carriers and maybe thinking back, like how you would have done it differently?
Yes, there was a situation where I was kind of telling them the price, or I actually just carried the conversation way too long. I was introducing myself to a carrier, and then Steve came up to me and actually suggested that I just go straight in.
Yep.
I'm from B2B. I've got this and I've got that, paying at this, and that's that. Wait for them to talk to you, and then we carry on from there. So
yeah, with carriers, when you're calling out, it's a very direct conversation to the point. Right. So that's a great example. Like, now you can cut out that 30 seconds of intro, because you're thinking I'm in sales and I have to, kind of make an introduction where, it's so weird with carriers. It's the opposite. It's like, you're just to it. And, it's pedal to the metal and let's go, and just give me the details. I'll tell you if I'm interested. Right.
Right. And I think that's the biggest part, is like having the switch over from carrier conversation to a client or future customer. So that's what's cool.
Yeah, that's a great point, because it's two polar opposites, right? When you're going carrier sales versus customer, and it's two different skill sets. So, and that's why a lot of times people start on the carrier side, because you learn, it's really, is it a good load for them or not? That's really what you're trying to get to. Mm-hmm. And just because you may not have a great delivery doesn't mean you can't sell the load to them. So, Joey, anything similar to elaborate on that?
Yeah, I had the same problem. Steve came over, gave me a post-it note, hit these points. That's it. So I was like, cool, easy. Made it a lot easier just to keep calling rather than trying to like, okay, get them engaged of a conversation of if they want the load or the points of the load. We've been doing a lot yesterday. Shout out to Maria. Thank you. We did a lot of like not so much one-on-one, but Alan, myself, and her. We went through quoting a customer, doing some partial. We learned a little bit more about that. We learned how to call a carrier, or have a carrier call us and ask about load, what to say about it. And yeah, it's pretty cool. Good experience.
That's good. Well, and that was part of the thing we chatted about the other day too, was, you know, we have a lot of people in the office that you can learn from and learn different things. And it doesn't just mean their role that they're doing today, because maybe they were, you know, a shipper, or maybe they worked at an asset-based company. Now they're in our brokerage. And so there's a lot of things, and just really working with those folks to figure out what are best practices, what can I pick up, because you're going to pick up nuggets from everybody in the office. And that's really my goal with this is I don't have all the answers. I'm never going to tell you I do. But what I'm really good at is like, you know, pushing, you know, as you guys see, maybe I push too much, but I wanted you to feel that pressure too. And now we can kind of back off and say, okay, we pushed. You know, it's kind of like when you're doing a workout, right? Or you start a new workout routine. You have these weeks where you're building and you're like just sore as all get out. And the next week you kind of, you know, maybe you take a little rest week or an active rest week so that you can establish a new plateau, you know, because if we're always just doing this, we're never going to get better. But if we apply that pressure to you guys with, you know, and I'm trying to make it as a safe but real environment, because I do want you guys to feel the pressure. So understand that some of this I am going to push on you, and I am going to make you uncomfortable, because customers are going to do this to you. Carriers are going to do this to you. You know, I have a million examples where you have it. And if you haven't dealt with that fire at some point in your career through your training, you're going to fail when it really, really counts. So in a weird, twisted way, I have your best interest at heart when I'm doing that. Right. So,
yeah.
So, cool. Well, you know, I really do appreciate that honesty, because I think that's what people are going to learn more from, because, you know, I mentioned already, but I just hate this world that we live in where it's like it's all rainbows and butterflies. You know what? This industry is hard, and only the best survive it. But if you survive it, you can make a great career out of it. So, Akib's asking, is that only me? Is there no voice? It disappeared at some point. I don't know. Maybe other people drop in the comments. Can you hear us? We got plenty of people on live showing in my number, so I don't think they'd be just sitting here lip reading, but I'll drop it in the comments. Let us know if you can hear. Because we can all hear each other, obviously.
Yeah, that's good.
And I'll test it. So let us know if you can hear us, and then, you know, where you're tuning in from today. That way we kind of know who our audience is today. So, so again, really appreciate that, guys. So it's been a few weeks. I think we were going to go live last week. Alan was sick. Maria says she can hear us, so that's good. There's your Maria. Maria loves attention, so she's probably over there blushing right now because she hates attention. So thank you, Maria. And Janet can hear. So it must just been on your side. So I'm not sure what's going on there. But we were going to go live, I think, last week, and you were sick, and we just, you know, pushed it out a week. But it's been a few weeks. So are there other things other than the agenda we were kind of going to chat about anyways that, you know, maybe you guys wanted to hit on, or just share some experiences or successes or failures that you've had? Alan, I'll let you go first.
One of the bigger things this week was when you sent me that email to quote someone.
Yeah.
And I should have had at least my emails go through my phone as well, because then I could have responded to you that way.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just staying on top of that and being I don't know, more communicative.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's it. I think being more on top of that.
Yeah. I mean, that's that's the thing about this industry. That takes no talent whatsoever. I mean, honestly, it's like, let's just be real. It takes no talent at all to be attentive and responsive. It takes discipline to do that because you're putting other people's needs before yours and you're trying to figure out how to multitask. But that's how you win customers in this business, because you never know. Like you know, for example, you guys could be 6 months down the road calling on this customer, calling. And then all of a sudden you get an email and they have a shipment that needs to go that day. You know, and you know, that 6 months of work all of a sudden is compressed to 5 minutes of response time.
Right.
And, you know, that's going to make or break it. And so that's, I mean, so let me ask the question to our listeners is, what else besides a sense of urgency is critical in this industry, you know, starting out for these guys? Because, you know, I want to hear what people think as well. And we'll jump those on. Akib says he's back on as well. I think I threw that up there, so that's good. But that's a great point, Alan. So I assume you have emails on your phone now?
Yeah, I've been getting those in now.
Good.
Yeah.
Joey, what about you as far as some other things the last couple of weeks that you've seen or, you know, you wanted to share?
I've been trying to do a lot more client calls, and I noticed that it doesn't really go anywhere. So it's kind of, I'm getting stopped at the gatekeeper.
Mm-hmm.
I found out how you kind of go around it. So I've been trying to use those tools, you know, such as LinkedIn, try to go around the gatekeeper. But even so, I'm still getting the voice messages, the voice of the client,
Mm-hmm.
the prospect, I should say. And it's, I don't know, it sucks.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be that's always when you're cold calling and doing a cold reach out that it's going to be a challenge. You know, I know I urged you to put that on LinkedIn. Everybody's kind of, you know, reiterated the same thing. It's a numbers game. You just have to continue to reach out. You know, some of those things of just being persistent. And that's like, if you remember back when in the beginning, I would share that, like, you have to make a game out of it, because if you tie your happiness to the results of the phone calls you're going to make, you're going to be miserable all the time. You just are. And I'm just an honest person about that, because I've made those calls and I've had those feelings and those frustrations that you guys are now having too. And like, why does nobody care that I'm calling them, right? It's like, but I have a lot to offer. But it's that gamification of it. It's like, okay, I'm going to make 100 calls or whatever the number is. And until I get a person on the phone, I'm going to just keep dialing. And then that's the reward. It's like, hey, I'm going to make sure I get one good conversation today. And if it doesn't go anywhere other than that, I've honed my skills, you know. And there's a thing that you talk about a lot of times in just leadership development is sharpening your axe. And that's what you guys are doing. You're sharpening your axe. You know, right now it's pretty dull. It's more like a blunt object that you're trying to cut a tree down with. And, you know, it's making dents, but it's just not cutting like you want it to. And that's okay. You know, and that, you know, just circling back to my thought process with this is I knew we were going to kind of come across this moment at some point. And we're probably going to hit it again a few times before you truly find success. Because there are days still in this industry where, I mean, Chad's on here. He can tell you so Chad, drop in there in the comments, like, how many agents do you talk to that go nowhere? You know, so it's the same thing. They sound great. You go through the process, and then all of a sudden something falls apart at the last hour because, you know, they're telling you best case scenario, and then we do our process, and you're like, nah, that's not really it. You know, which is unfortunate, but that's part of it. If it was easy, everybody would do it. So,
but also makes it worse that Sales Dash lets us know that when they open up the emails, every call I send an email, kind of detailed email, and then you can see that they open it up pretty much right after you called. So it's just awesome.
Yeah. I know that's like a sick little tool, right?
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. So, all right. So one of the things I asked you guys to do was send some videos to some people in the industry, myself included. Let's talk about some of that feedback that you got, the good, the bad, the ugly. So Joey, I know you had some pretty pointed feedback. Kind of share what you sent, and then what that feedback was, and then how we're using it as well.
So I'm having trouble finding like a cold call script for B2B. It's like there's not one like it online. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of just, do you need help with your freight? Simple, kind of. But that's what I was trying to do. And I sent it to 3 people. Let's start with that. 2 of them said it was decent enough, and another person said it was bad. Just put it like that. So I changed things around, try to find more like detail for the cold call, and try to get their attention more. So there's a lot of like, hey Kale, hey Kale, hey Kale. Try to bring back their attention to what I was trying to say. I sent it to 2 people, and they thought it was good enough. One wanted me to post it on LinkedIn, but I never did. I practiced a lot outside, and then I stopped when it started raining. There was like a downpour, so I had to stop at that moment and go back inside. But I could have done better, but it worked out, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and I think so unpacking, where you are now, the feedback that you were given is, you're 6 weeks into this, and that was 4 weeks. So it's like, you're going to be green, and it's going to be not good, for lack of better terms, right? Because it's just not, you've never done it. And, it just goes back to why we're doing the process the way we're doing it, is because getting new people in this industry is hard because of just the challenges of what we see, especially in a market like today, right? Where everybody that has a piece of freight is getting called probably 100 times for one piece of freight. And if you put yourself in their shoes, why are they going to call everybody back? Right? They're like, so we have to figure out a way to be unique enough to get through to them without being annoying. And that is the challenge. I mean, it really is. I mean, I've shared with you guys, I had people that I did business with for years. I call them about once a month. You know who you are if you're listening to this, but I know they're not, because they're not returning my calls. I have the same problem still. It's like, and this was a great customer for me for 13 years. I'm like, we're tight, man. I'm golden with this. No, we're not, apparently. So that's gonna happen. We all have that. So and Chad put in, roughly one of 100 when I asked the question about, just from his perspective on agents. So it's kind of the same thing. I mean, it's just a numbers game. It is super, super frustrating. So, so here's a couple of good comments. So Janice says, when making a cold call, set your mindset as you're out to making an acquaintance, not a bestie. Yep. Yeah, you're not gonna share recipes and pictures of your kids and dogs on the first call. So
I'm best friends with that voice message though.
Yeah. What about you, Alan? What were some experiences you had with that process?
I didn't send any videos to anyone, but I did practice on FaceTime with my family, actually, because I told them I had this new job, and they were like, oh, well, let's figure it out. And they were just, again, that's why I brought it up about being more fluid, being not so monotone, and have changed my tonality a bit, because I'm very just constant on one tone.
Yeah.
Don't sound very excited or don't sound very enthusiastic is what I've heard. But so I'm trying to change that side. I don't know, make my voice pitch a little more. I don't know.
Well, and I think cadence too, because Joey, what was yours yesterday that we were talking about that you were trying to pitch like, do you have your ICP right there, or your script where it was like, read that to me and let me elaborate on that.
Which part? Like the
part that I rewrote where it was like, the value or the, losing their best customer.
Or even worse, losing a valued customer.
Yeah. So read that whole sentence for me.
I'm calling because we help companies like yours, B2B, overcome communication problems that cause damage, delays, or even worse, losing a valued customer.
Yeah. So one of the things that I shared with Joey is, because he was trying to talk about theft and all the stuff that's going on in this industry right now, which is all true.
Right.
But it was like, why does that matter to them? So it was like, imagine that you're dealing with delays, damages, or even worse, losing your best customer. And I was really emphasizing slowing down, because a lot of times when you're in a conversation and your pitch is the same, or your tone is the same, you're not drawing people in. But if I say, imagine losing or having damage, delays, or even worse, losing your best customer because of something that happened outside of your control or something like that. But just the fact that I paused, and it's going to bring people's attention because it's different. And then I really emphasize losing your best customer, because now it's like, well, yeah, I can't afford to lose my best customer. And now we have their attention. And, just even like where you read that, you just read it. It's very scripted, right? So it's really making it natural part of your conversation. I think Akib actually has a comment here. In his opinion, there's no script. It's just a matter of charm and ability to communicate. That's all we're doing, is we're just talking to people, and we're trying to make them feel comfortable with who we are. And then if that happens, hopefully we can make a sale from it. I've had numerous conversations in my life where I think I'm going to land a deal because the conversation's going so well, and it doesn't. They just weren't, if you're going back to your ICP that we're going to talk about here soon, we weren't connected on that. I thought we were, but maybe we weren't, or maybe they didn't have, the timing was off, or whatever it was. There's a lot of reasons that happened. So there's just a lot of different things that happen. So, I'll pause there. You guys have any feedback on any of that?
I think we're good.
You're good? Okay. All right. So let's get in. Or actually, I do have another question, Alan. You said your family. What was like one specific thing that you took away from your family's feedback?
Yeah, I think my tone. I think I get that a lot. That I'm very just chill, and that it's just how I talk, and it's just me.
Yeah.
But having to change and adjust, I don't know. It's been a little struggle, but I'm glad they brought it up, and I've also had friends tell me the same thing, so I know it's a thing.
Yeah. Well, as hard as it is to believe, I used to be told that too. I know that's probably hard for you guys to believe because you only know me now, but whereas like you're just chill, you're like, you never get too up, you never get too down. And so I took that to heart, because it was like, well, I need to like have emotion, because I know in my head I'm going freaking nuts, right, with what I want to do and what I want to accomplish. And so why is that? Why am I not able to articulate that to whoever I'm working with? And so it's trying to make that leap without being cheesy or overbearing, but getting through to people. So it will come with time, and that's why we're practicing all this stuff. Because I always make the sports analogy. So if you think about, you're probably very aggressive on the soccer field, right?
Right.
But you're still chilled outside of it. So you just have to figure out how to take that from the soccer field to your job. You can still be the same person. You're just bringing out those attributes that you use somewhere else. And a lot of times that helps us make that connection, because it's like, yeah, I did it over here. How do I take that success and put it into what I'm doing? And that's why I love athletes, because often we can do that. Because you can do hard things, you can work, and you can show up in day after day and work through those challenging moments. So, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So let's get into your ICPs. your ideal client profile. We've gone back and forth quite a bit on that this week. Who wants to take a stab first at what their ICP is?
I'll do it.
Okay.
So starting off, I'm going to go with small to medium businesses. The location off of NS8 gets freeway be much easier to get to. Employees, I would say around 1,000. I think that was a good amount. Industry is wood manufacturing. I had to Google like what's a good revenue. I got 10%, but within time I'll probably change that answer.
10% of what?
I just said 10% of what the company is.
Okay. So like if they are $200 million in sales, they're going to have 20 million in freight spend.
Basically, that's
Okay.
what I got from it. But that'll probably change.
Yeah.
With website traffic, I had to Google that because they said 10,000 would be a good amount. I don't know if that's 10,000 for like say Apple or something like that, but no different. Freight loads 3 to 4 a week. Budget to 1 million to 100 million. Dry van, flatbed. Pain points, I'm thinking just not enough trucks, but that would change as well.
Okay. So it's still pretty broad. So let's it was a lot better than what we had the other day, but you said 1 million to 100 million. So that's a huge market. You said both flatbed and dry van. What did you say about geography?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't say that. Northwest to southeast. I was looking for lumber mills, plywood mills. There's a lot, of course, in Pacific Northwest, and I found a lot over by Georgia, Florida, and they're on my CRM.
Okay. So, and a lot of times people, those are two obviously very different geographies, but from a commodity standpoint, they are both in those regions. So, what I would say is you focus on probably the P&W just because that's where you're at, and that's what you're familiar with, because then you can expand that out. And a lot of times what you do too is you get those customers that are in the Pacific Northwest, they have locations that are in the Southeast, right? Because, they might be doing, pine out here, and then you go to the south, they got the southern pines, they got some of the hardwoods, and I'm not an expert on that, so if I screw that up, nobody crucify me on that. But but you have different I was gonna say makes, but different types of wood based on the geography, and they're just going to be different markets, right? So all right. So, and Sean did mention, I put that up on there, this channel's getting spicier. So yeah, we're trying, Sean. I'm pushing on them. So I know that's why you laughed, Joey. So
yeah. I looked up and saw it. So
so Alan, I'm gonna let you critique Joey. What would you change about Joey's ICP there that he just shared? And ask questions if you need to.
Yeah. I thought he could have mentioned more like shipping needs of like what kind of focus freight he was trying to push or move. But other than that, I think like you said, mentioned, it's still a little broad. Mine's might be a little too broad as well. But yeah, I think that was it.
Yeah. So when you said types of shipments, what do you mean by that?
Like, is he trying to move flatbed drive-in? I don't know if I missed it, but I didn't hear it. If he was trying to move reefer, or how many loads was he going to focus on a company, or if a company's moving a certain amount of loads a month or a day, or
I think he said drive-in and flatbed at the end.
Okay, I didn't hear that.
I also said 3 to 4 truckloads a week.
Then you're good.
But you said, so let's clarify that 3 to 4 truckloads. Is that what you're hoping to get or what they're shipping?
What I'm hoping to get.
Okay. And why that number? Just curious.
It's just a low amount of number for a small, medium, and then starting out. That's what I was aiming for.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think with any kind of customer, you need to have enough volume that you have enough touch points that you can show value. 3 to 4 is probably enough in the beginning, but when you have shipments going every single day, that's when you can really gain some traction with customers and show your value and your worth, because it shows you that you're able to manage multiple shipments in different whether it's pickup, delivery, in transit, getting them into your system and dispatching for the next week. Hey, what are you working on next week? And then you're able to share with them too, maybe some challenges of like, hey, I called the receiver, they're full up on appointments. They can't get me in a time until, next Friday. So do you want to ship this whatever day would make sense based on that shipment? So having enough volume with any kind of shipper really allows you. And one of the things I want to ask people to drop it in the comments is like, what is your go-to or your favorite question that you ask every time you call a shipper? Could be something simple. I'll throw a couple out there. What's your hours of service? Is there truck parking? What's your favorite or your go-to question that you ask every time that you're calling on a load that you already have to a location, just to make sure that you have all the details that you need? So drop that in the comments for us. So yeah, Joey, I would say, even more specific, and you're going to hear me continue to say that, because what I want to have in your mind is exactly who your ideal client is. And so that when they're opening your emails, and you'll get these where they open them 10 times and they never answer your call.
Yep.
And they never respond. That in your mind that customer is an ideal, your ICP, so that you're not going to give up. I've shared this example before. I had a customer I called for 8 years before I got set up with them. 8 years. And because I knew they were the perfect customer for us and I wasn't going to give up. And there was actually, I don't even remember who it was because I wasn't connected to them on LinkedIn, but they kind of had the similar question was, if you're getting ghosted and no replies, how long do you call? And my response was, you never quit calling if you know that they're a great match for you and you're a great match for them. Now, you might widen that frequency because you don't want to be a total pest. Like if they tell you, hey, I have a RFP coming out in February, you're not going to call them every day. You might drop them an email once a month, like, hey, just checking in. I know we've got that RFP, but just wanted to say hi. If anything's changed prior to that, let me know. Don't expect a response. Just know that you're sharpening your axe and you're just going to work. So, all right. Joe, anything else on that?
I don't think so.
Yeah. I think whenever I ask for comments, it's always like super delayed because we get them like way later. We're here. So, Alan, ICP, let's go.
Yeah, my industry focus was manufacturing, wholesale, and distribution. Companies that, I don't know, require raw material, finished products. I think that was that industry. Next was like company size. I put small to medium as well. And I remember adding notes where it was like finding unique lanes and inconsistency and attacking that. And I also put from 1 million to 100 million for company revenue. And employee count, I said 25 and plus, so 25 minimum. And I had examples under my ICP of companies that had like geographical location where they had a big plant in the West, but also had like 3 or 4 offices scattered around like Arizona, California, Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was interesting. And it appealed. So I just wrote it down.
Yeah.
Shipping needs, I think, would be more flatbed reefer, and dry van. Company has to be pushing at least 10 loads a day or a week. I say a week. Other than that, I think that was it for my ICP.
Okay. I think you named 95% of the companies in the U.S. with that.
I know.
We did talk about it before going in different offices. Al and I did have a conversation. He's like, it's too broad. Like,
yeah.
A little bit, but
yeah. I think, and I shared this with you guys, but I'll share it here, is that I went back to my asset days And, I'll just share kind of what our ICP was. We were a flatbed carrier, so obviously flatbed freight. We wanted customers that had where we could at least get 10 loads a day in major markets, because that's the volume and capacity we had that we could build into. Because I didn't want to have a bunch of shippers that I was going to get one load from, because when you had 300 plus assets, it was very, very difficult to sign up that many customers. So I needed people with large volumes, so the lead time was longer. So I was going for enterprise shippers with multiple locations up and down I-5, major markets like DFW, the Dallas Fort Worth market, Atlanta, Colorado, Denver was another one. The Indiana was a hotbed for flatbeds, Eastern PA. So I was looking for those major shippers, those enterprise shippers. But also on top of that, I was looking for people that didn't require drop trailers, because we didn't drop trailers. So if I found out they had drop trailers, after a conversation, if they said we require that, I moved on from them, because I was just wasting my time. So it's going to be the same thing for you guys. If they say everything's a drop on the flatbed, you're going to be like, there's not a lot of people that do that. They're just the big guys. But if you say on a van they require drops, we do some of that. So that doesn't eliminate them. But going back to mine, general building materials and commodities that are easy to load and unload. We weren't doing a bunch of OD stuff. We weren't going for those big, heavy haul, oversized dimensional stuff, because our thing was, we talked about producing miles. So we tried to be as efficient as we could. So we wanted stuff that could load quickly and unload quickly. And we always talked about what we manufactured was miles. Just like a lumber mill manufactures lumber, we manufactured miles, because we aligned how we got paid as a asset-based company to what our drivers got paid on. So if we cared about the same thing as our driving team members and our drivers, we were aligned on that. And so now we were very specific. If they didn't meet all those things, we passed. I don't say this to brag, but I fired several customers over my career over there, because they didn't value our time, more specifically our drivers' times. When they would go in there, if they took 4 or 5 hours to load, we'd call up and have a conversation about it. I didn't even want to build them detention time. We did, but I'd rather you just load my truck, because nobody's making nearly as much money with that truck sitting versus it moving. And the way that we were so good at manufacturing those miles that we might lose a day of revenue on the end of the week, because they delayed our truck. And now we can't do that 1,000-mile run in 2 days. It took us 2.5 days, because we sat there for 5 hours. So there's a lot of things that go into it. So I share that because if they weren't a partner in our business as we were in theirs, they weren't an ideal fit. And they would call back and say, oh, we changed. You try to go back in and nothing, maybe the first load they changed. So it's really being true to that. So let's see what Sean says here. When Joey reaches the decision maker at ICP, I spent 7 years in timber, so I'm the most qualified trucking guy you'll hear from all month. That's perfect. I love it. That's a great thing. You don't say that that's what he's saying you should say, Joey.
Yeah. Thanks, Sean.
And I think we've talked about that, is like, hey, I've been in your shoes. And that's the thing that I always shared, is like, hey, I started out as a shipper. I understand what it takes, for you guys. It's been a while, but I've been on that side. And then I've been an asset-based company. And I have a call Monday with another person on our team. That's probably going to be my thing. Is like, look, hey, I've been a shipper. I've been an asset-based company. And now I run a brokerage. I understand all those things that it takes. And so that's how we operate our company as a freight brokerage, is with you in mind. It's not just what's going to benefit us. So great point, Sean.
Thanks, Sean. Use that.
Use the experience you have, use that experience. So going back to yours, Alan, your ICP, still, you just need to nail it down more and more.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, when go back to it, drill down, leave it for a day, go back, drill down again, leave it for a day. Do that 2, 3, 4, 5 times until you know exactly. And then you can go identify 10 shippers that actually match that. And then you'll know that your ICP is dialed enough to actually go out and work on? Because I think that's part of you guys' frustration now, is it's so broad, you're just swimming in all this information.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, I'll go in and fix that.
You know, I always say that you can't be all things to all people all the time. It's just, we can't be. I can be very good at what I do, but that doesn't mean I'm for everybody. So, Joey, what kind of feedback other than that would you have for Alan?
I think it's just being so broad. He kind of went over a lot of 10 trucks per week. You went over the flatbed, dry van, reefer. It's just kind of broad.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. So some of the things that I want to chat about that I think that will help you guys is, the election's over. Freightways has declared that the freight recession's over. We all hope that that's true. Sean must be like a Google expert. Alan, 5% of U.S. logistics managers enjoy soccer. Right.
5%?
Yeah. Hey, it only takes one.
Yeah, I'm gonna attack the 5% then.
But hey, let's compare that to if you get 1 out of 100 people on the phone. If you get 5 out of 100 that like soccer, you just increase your odds by, and you could totally do that in your pitch, your email pitch, like, what big soccer games are coming up, or hey, who's your favorite team? You said Lionel Messi or Leo Messi, so it's probably not Miami FC or whatever. Is it?
It's the club
he's at right now. Is that who he plays for now?
Miami.
Yeah, but it could be like, hey, Leo Messi's my favorite player, and whatever, right? I modeled my game after him. Just try to figure out a way to stick out, because not everybody, and I don't say this to brag for you, but not everybody's been an All-American in any sport. I bet if you went around our office, you're the only one. So that's a differentiator for you. And don't use it to, and I know you well enough that you're not that bragging type, but it's like, it's just a fact. So
I'll try to input that.
Yeah. Always try different tactics, make them speak with you, try to find their weaknesses, always sound natural, never give up. You choose one of the toughest industries to work in. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then Sean says, Alan, LinkedIn comment. I assume that's the algorithm is kicking my behind. 5% of logistics managers love soccer. Just add something to your script. Random question. Are you a soccer guy, gal, by the way? Shoot your shot. I agree.
Yeah.
That's part of the reason, if I look at what we're doing tomorrow with the NBA Pick'em, the brokers in basketball, how many people I've had reach out to me, and because of that, it's like, you think it's something stupid, but number one, I love basketball, so it's fun and it's easy for me. And number two, people are reaching out that are in our industry that I probably never would have talked to because of it. So, and I bet people reach out to Sean all the time because he's put memes in their comments all the time. Like, where do you get all those memes? I need to up my meme game. So good stuff. Appreciate your guys' comments, guys, because it makes this, I think it makes it better. And that's really what I'm after. So going back, election's over. Freightways has declared it over. How is that going to help you guys, and why should you matter? A lot of times once we get past election, at least the conversation of that is over. And, I'm very bullish on this market. I don't know when it's going to happen, but you guys are going to look back and be like, hey, I'm glad I started when I did, as hard as it was, because I'm going to know one of the hardest markets that I will ever see in my lifetime. And I will be appreciative of those good markets. And so if you guys hone your skills right now, when the market does take off, I can promise you'll get a lot more customers, because just the market's gonna be in your favor. If I go back to, I said this, if not 1,000, 1,000,000 times to people during COVID when it was just crazy nuts. And I would be like, guys, this is not normal. You have to understand it's normally not this easy. I mean, it would literally be like customers calling you like, hey, I know I just called you like 3 hours ago, but I really need help with the shipment. What can you do? And I mean, it was literally in emails just blown up in spot markets. I mean, it's just nuts. And now we're at the exact opposite. So the fact that you guys are honing your skill in a really bad market, you're going to be prepared for when it does take off. Because you'll see, it's like real estate. You see a rush to the market from a real estate agent perspective when it's good. Well, they often miss that boat because, you know, if they wait to see that it's hot and heavy, now they get into it, they don't really have a clientele that's going to survive the downturn. So, what are your guys' thoughts? Not to get political, because this is not the point of this, but with the election being done, are there thoughts that you guys have had as far as how that's going to help or hurt you guys?
Yeah, I think it's just going to be interesting what kind of policies might be put in place for us to, or for companies to start moving more stuff, where there's going to be production more. I know I've heard like over border stuff being more active from like Mexico to US or cross bordering stuff. So that's interesting. And I'd probably have to do more research on it.
Yeah. Joe, what about you?
Yesterday I got a notification. My the Bitcoin is up positive, finally positive $30. It's been like 3 years. I don't know how long ago I put money into it, but it's finally positive. So I know, and you know, of course, after the election, Dow went up X amount of 1,300 points or something like that. Anyways, so I seeing that now, I'm like, I got more self pressure to get this down because I don't know when it's going to happen, but it's going to probably happen sooner than later. It's going to get really busy, and that's where I'm putting more pressure on myself. Make sure I got my tools down. I'm available. I'm understand what I need to do, where I'm going, and stuff like that. But yeah, good pressure.
Yeah, that's good. Okay. You know, from my perspective, the thing about this industry is it keeps says more imports from China. That'll be interesting because I know Trump is not a big China guy, so we'll see how that goes. But especially air cargo, he says. But I'm not in that space, so I know about this much about that space. So I'm not your expert on that. You know what I am excited about is that when there's unknown in the market, people just sit on the sidelines. And so now that it's over, it doesn't matter necessarily who won. It's just done, and we can move forward because that indecision in the market is now removed. And you know we're going to go we're going to go forward with a clear direction, and that's only going to help the people that are in business and want to do business. And a lot of times, as business owners, when there's this market of uncertainty, you just wait, and so money doesn't flow. And so that's a big thing about the economy is the money has to move. It just has to move. I have to buy something. You guys have to buy something. We have to make more money. And then just that circle of the evolution of the money through the economy is so critical. So, but yeah, to your point too, Joe, is like Bitcoin's up, the market's up. You know, that's just going to help people's optimism with what we're seeing out there. I'll circle back on this because we got about 5 minutes. If I can leave you guys with anything, is the sense of urgency. You know, I'm going to continue to push on you guys. Know that I'm super happy with where we are, but I'm super unsatisfied at the same time, if that makes any sense. Because I want you guys to find success. And Joe, you did have another load. I know it canceled, but I think you still have it on the books for next week, right?
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. So I mean, it's not the success you want, but it's success. You know, Alan, whatever happened with the one, somebody reached out to us about some sheet metal stuff. Did you give that guy a call?
Yes, I gave a call. He just didn't answer. I emailed him, also didn't answer. So I might have to follow up again in a couple of days, see what's up.
I mean, you never know. It's probably a flyer, but at least gives you practice with somebody that reached out to us about some other stuff. So, that's how I look at it, is like, it's just an opportunity to learn and get better. So, so we're probably going to keep this kind of on a 2-week cadence. Depends on the holidays and stuff, but I don't want to get it to where we're meeting and we don't have a lot to talk about, or we're talking about the same things, because I want this to be real, and I kind of want the struggles to be there in a positive way, and we put that pressure on you guys in a positive way. So,
hey, Kale.
Yo.
Can we set some goals for next week, like where you want us to be a little more further along, or like
Sure.
milestone where you want us to be?
Do you have specific areas that you're thinking of goals? Like,
Yeah, I just kind of left it up to you.
You just managed up and just threw a grenade in my lap and said, how can we?
You got it.
What I would say is, it goes back to, it's really hard in the beginning to have, like, number of loads goals. That's one thing I meant to look at and I didn't get a chance to, was actually look at the CRM. And so let's do this. You guys go in and tell me how many calls that you've logged in the last week. Not right now, but when we get off, and we'll look at that. We'll put some goals around calls and emails, and activity-based goals, because that's where you're going to get momentum. Because right now, it'd be one thing if you had a customer list that you were working with actively, and we could put some number of shipments and those kind of goals, but we don't. So I think that would be detrimental to your psyche to say, hey, I expect you to have $5,000 in margin in 2 weeks, because you don't even have any customers other than the one Joey and Alan still working on his first. But also, how do we measure that sense of urgency? And just building that in so that, think about when you're standing in my office yesterday, I said, okay, you need to leave because you're driving me crazy. If you want me to give you, because you're like pacing, right? So you have a sense of urgency in that. Think about, how do I take that sense of urgency into my daily activities and build that? So take that energy you already have and make it positive.
Okay.
I'm going to respond to emails, customer emails in 5 minutes. I'm going to respond to internal emails, and I'm going to sit with so many people, and I'm going to come back with my top 5 list of things I learned, things like that. Because that right there is going to help you guys move forward a lot further than having goals of how many loads we're going to move, because we're just not there yet. So you have some homework. I see what I just did. I just took your question and put it back on you, what you're going to do.
I like it. Told you got it.
Yeah, I'm really good at that. I'm managing back to you. So yeah, we can chat about that. Alan, any final thoughts?
No, I think it's just making those adjustments and putting them into action, or putting it into action at least.
Yeah. Well, and I to go back to Sean's message, this is getting a little spicier. It's by design. I'm going to push on you guys. I do appreciate you going through that process. Know that if there's ever a concern, just like you asked me today, you can ask me, and I'm going to tell you if there's a concern. The only concern is I want us to get you guys up and running, because it goes back to when I started. I hated feeling like I didn't know what I was doing. And so that's kind of where my mindset is. So awesome. Well, appreciate everybody listening. If you haven't already, hit subscribe, share this channel, do all the things that to spread the word, because I think that this market is really underserved. I'm just being honest and raw about, how hard this industry is and how hard it is to get started. And I think we're kind of getting into the meat and potatoes of this process. So appreciate you guys. Any final words?
Nope. Not for me.
Good.
Until next time, guys.
Yep. See you, Kale.
All right. See you guys.